We are starting the next session shortly. Good afternoon, all. We are starting this session's panel discussion. The topic is Decolonizing AI in Southeast Asia, Global Trends, Local Realities, and Research Frontiers. In this panel, to discuss this issue, we have a very distinguished panel chaired by Professor Dr. Mrinal Chatterjee, Professor of Practice, Odisha University of Technology and Research. And we have a very rich panel comprising Professor Dr. Joya Chakraborty, Professor and Head, Department of Mass Communication and Journalism, Tezpur University. Mr. Jayanta Ghoshal, Consulting Editor, NDTV. And we are also privileged to have virtual presence of Dr. Jinu K. Verghese, Assistant Professor, Manipal Institute of Communication, Udupi, Karnataka. I would request our technical team to connect Dr. Jinu K. Verghese on the screen on stage. Dr. Verghese, can you hear me? Sir, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah.
Yes. Welcome to our shows. So,
thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, we are starting the show.
Yes.
I would request Dr. Mrinal Chatterjee to come on stage, please. I'd request Professor Dr. Joya Chakraborty to come on stage. And Mr. Jayanta Ghoshal, dear Jayantoda, to come on stage, please. Before the panel starts, let me give a short introduction of all the guests and also our esteemed chair, Professor Dr. Mrinal Chatterjee, starting with Dr. Mrinal Chatterjee. Dr. Chatterjee is a journalist turned media academician who works as a professor of practice in Odisha University of Technology and Research, Bhubaneswar, after his superannuation as professor of communication at the East India campus of Indian Institute of Mass Communication, IIMC, located at Dhenkanal, Odisha. He also served as regional director of IIMC Dhenkanal for several years. He did DLIT and PhD from Berhampur University and Masters in English, Public Administration and JMC from Utkal and GJ University. He has authored 9 books and contributed 12 book chapters on mass communication. He also writes fiction, plays, and columns. Many of his novels have been translated into several Indian and foreign languages. His research interests include pedagogical innovation, environment, comic art, and partition films. I would request Professor Dr. Mrinal Parikh to come on stage and felicitate Dr. Mrinal Chatterjee. We have in our panel Professor Joya Chakraborty, Professor and Head, Department of Mass Communication and Journalism, Tezpur University. Dr. Chakraborty is a professor of Department of Mass Communication and Journalism, Tezpur University. She holds a PhD in Communication from University of Hyderabad. Her areas of specialization include Communication for Social Change, Sociology of Communication Technology, Gender and Media, Children and Media Participation, and Community Media. She is the author of 2 books and has published various peer-reviewed research papers. Professor Chakraborty has led and coordinated externally funded research projects, including studies supported by ICSSR and UNICEF, focusing on culture, communication, and development in Northeast India. She has been engaged in curriculum design and capacity building of faculty members for NEP implementation in journalism and mass communication curriculum. She has held key academic and administrative responsibilities and supervised doctoral research in media and communication studies at Tezpur University. I would request Dr. Moushumi Bhattacharya to come on stage and felicitate Professor Dr. Joya Chakraborty. I would request Dr. Moushumi Bhattacharya to stay on stage to felicitate Jayanta Ghoshal, sir. Mr. Jayanta Ghoshal is the consulting editor of NDTV, is a veteran journalist with more than 4 decades of experience. He has been actively working in journalism since 1984, making this his 43rd consecutive year in the profession. A political science graduate, Jayanta Ghoshal built his career covering national politics, national security, strategic affairs, and Indian foreign policy. He has extensively covered international diplomacy and multilateral platforms across the world. As an accredited journalist at the United Nations, he has reported from multiple sessions of the United Nations General Assembly in New York. Apart from the UN, he has also covered major international summits and forums, including BRICS, BIMSTEC, ASEAN, CERC, G20 finance minister meetings, and G20 heads of state summits. His work has taken him to several countries across different continents, where he has reported on diplomacy, geopolitics, international relations, and economic cooperation. Before joining NDTV, Jayanta Ghoshal worked with several leading India media organizations in important editorial positions. I'd request Dr. Moushumi Bhattacharya to felicitate Jayantoda. Thank you, Moushumi. And as already I have announced that we are privileged to have the virtual presence of Dr. Jinu K. Verghese, Assistant Professor, Manipal Institute of Communication, Udupi, Karnataka. Dr. Verghese is a scholar and educator at the intersection of artificial intelligence and visual communication based in Manipal, Karnataka. He serves as Assistant Professor at the Manipal Institute of Communication and is an active collaborator with the AI in Education initiative at the University of Oxford. His academic formation is distinctly international. He received his master's in digital media from the Catholic University of Korea on a Government of South Korea GEO Master's Scholarship and completed his PhD in communication, AI and visual communication at Manipal Institute of Higher Education, supported by the Dr. TMA Pai Research Fellowship. He also holds a diploma in film appreciation from the Film and Television Institute of India, Pune, grounding his AI research in a deep understanding of visual culture and cinematic language. We are pleased to welcome Dr. Verghese once again.
Thank you, sir.
Now I hand it over to Mrinal sir to continue.
Good afternoon. The topic on which the three panelists and half of me will discuss for the next 75 minutes is decolonizing AI in Southeast Asia. Good that they have restricted this discussion to Southeast Asia, because if it would have been South Asia, then I would have been in a problem, because China will be there. So this discussion will be about shifting AI development, data, and governance away from being dominated by US and increasingly China tech models and Western data sets, so that the purpose, it actually reflects local languages, cultures, and problems. Having set the context, we have three very distinguished speakers on this. So without wasting any more time, we will go to Mr. Verghese and we'll listen to him first, because he is an expert in the practical how part of integration of AI into education and other related fields. We'll hear him first, and then we will proceed with our discussions. Thank you very much. Over to you, Dr. Verghese.
Thank you, Pranal sir. So the area I am working, basically, as sir said, AI and visual communication. So basically, how this global South or Southeast Asian countries are being represented in AI. So I believe visual representation is where cultural assumption become most visible and most consequential. So in our research, one of our research, so we have tested around 3 to 4 mid-journey and all, and we have documented a consistent, predictable patterns of how So for this research, we have documented the Indian cultural elements. So how these Indian cultural elements are rendered, and these are not, just random errors. They followed a recognizable logic. So I will explain it further. For example, the first pattern we have found, right, across different platforms, whether it's ChatGPT, Gemini, and all, the first pattern is temporal displacement, right? So these systems have a consistent tendency to represent non-Western cultures as pre-modern, right? As if they, exist outside the contemporary time. So we have given prompts, the same prompt across these, different platforms, and prompts that explicitly rendered, referenced modern Indian context, right? And it still produced this historical ceremonial output. So, I mean, I'm not saying that modernity was not at all present in those images. It was present, but in a very superficial, side. The second pattern was institutional validation, right? This system consistently choose the formal, officially recognizable version of culture over community version. For example, in one of the image, we have given the prompt, this lady praying in a Hindu temple. So we get the images of this temple in a very beautiful lighting, in the chiaroscuro lighting setup and all with the sari. It's all so beautiful, right? So it's being the religious practice rendered through its monumental setting, not the how ordinary people actually observe it, right? And the third pattern was we call it aesthetic transformation. Whatever the image they have given, especially with the culture, religious thing and all, the system converted these cultural practices into spectacles, visually striking, easily digestible, beautiful image, just like a Hollywood movies and all. So why does this happen, right? That is the question. So we can say that there is not enough diverse training data. Yes, that's a part of it, but that is not the core problem also. The core problem is that every stage of how the system learn to see, for example, what data gets selected, how it gets annotated, and what counts as good output, right, reflects a particular set of assumption about the world, right? The assumption that were never designed with Indian culture or Southeast, Asian culture in mind. They were built elsewhere, and they treat everything that doesn't fit as a variation from the norm, and not as a norm its own right. So this is more of a epistemological problem, I would say, not just a data problem. So simply adding more, Southeast Asian images into existing pipeline doesn't capture that authentic representation of these, these countries. Because the pipeline wasn't built to recognize these distinctions. It was built according to assumption that treat one visual tradition as the standard, the Western visual tradition as the standard, and everything else as a variation from it. So, in my opinion, so the argument comes down to this. The data set diversity, right? Everyone talks about, change the data, add more data, more cultural data. It will, the bias, and that's how biases can be mitigated, especially how to represent, these Southeast Asian countries and all. So I'm talking about from the image side. So the data set diversity is necessary, but not sufficient. What is equally required is a rethinking of who controls the evaluation framework, the structural part, right? Who defines the quality? Who defines the accuracy? And who decides when generated images of a community, let's say Southeast Asian countries, is actually faithful to that community's experience, right? So I know this is these are not technical question, rather it's kind of a political one. And until they are treated as such, diversifying training data will not decolonize AI. It will simply give the existing system more material to work with because the structure is already so biased. That's my first point. You're not audible, sir.
Hello. Hello.
Yes.
Dr. Varghese, be with us.
Yes.
If there are questions, and if we go and discuss one particular area where you might have something to add, please do add, right? Be with us. Thank you. So, with Dr. Varghese has flagged some issues of why colonization happens in AI. One, language. Second, dominant culture. These are the two areas which Dr. Varghese has flagged. I'll now go to Joya, and I'll request her to throw light on what are the other aspects for which we think that AI is colonizing. And the next logical question will be what we need to do to decolonize it. We'll come to that in the later part of our discussion. First, what are the other factors?
Hello. Okay, okay. Thank you, Professor Chatterjee. And I also thank Dr. Minal Parekh and Sister Nivedita University for having me here and giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts on this particular topic. We have already started the discussion about decolonizing AI, and we already had a good point discussed here. How I had planned to talk about it is to flag some very recent and interesting readings about the various frameworks of decolonizing AI, and then probably flag some concerns with regard to decolonization and what probably the research directions can be for us. So rather than spending a lot of time on those readings, I'll just quickly go through them, and that's just to trigger the interest and maybe the reading direction. So okay, thank you. Yeah. So starting with, we understand already that there are different types of AI. One out of these types, what is being said by some scholars, interestingly, is that AI is whatever hasn't been done yet. Basically, of the different types of AI, when some AI becomes so very normalized that it becomes part of our everyday life, then we don't talk of it as AI. So AI is whatever hasn't been done yet. Otherwise, it gets integrated in our everyday life, and we do not recognize it as AI anymore. A very interesting book by Arvind Narayanan talks and introduces this idea of AI as snake oil and says that many a times, whatever is being qualified as AI and the celebration of AI may not always be good. So there is not always just a very good side of integrating AI, and not all AI is whatever or is not able to deliver whatever it assures. And primarily, he raises many red flags regarding the use of predictive AI and generative AI, which is very common for many of us. And he talks about the landscape of AI snake oil and gives a picture where he concentrates and says that the only type of AI that we can probably concentrate on and discuss more about is in the lower left-hand side corner of this particular scheme, where he categorizes different types of AI as benign and harmful, and as something that is really workable, or something that is just like snake oil. That means there is a lot of hype, but it actually doesn't work. So this is a structural analysis that he does about the different types of AI, and says and recommends that we need to create a lot of guardrails and policy directions before we decide to wholeheartedly and in every way to integrate AI into our everyday lives. One of the examples is that of ELISA effect, and we know in a very common example that many a times young people, and not just only young people, many people are moving towards AI for their mental health support. And rather than going for counseling or for going to any other human for networking, for support, people believe that AI is not judgmental, and hence people go to AI for mental health support and to discuss their personal distress and issues. What psychologists have said, though there is very less research that has happened in India, but in Western countries, a lot of research has started on this, that it actually pushes people to move in a loop, because AI gives back to us whatever we expect from it. It doesn't give us anything new. So we keep on moving in this same loop and we do not come out of it. So this is one of the problems. And we also have another context where we have to think of the Gartner hype cycle, which again puts technology at different phases of development and talks about how the perceived value of a particular technology keeps on shifting, and it starts off with an innovation trigger and then goes through a peak of inflated expectations and trough of disillusionment, slope of enlightenment, and plateau of productivity, where it ultimately gets integrated and we are able to use it in a systematic way in our everyday life. And the Gartner hype cycle also shows the different AI technologies which are at different stages of this phase, where there is a lot of hype. If we see it, we'll see that most of it is at the peak of inflated expectations and innovation trigger, whereas there is nothing that has yet reached the plateau of productivity. So it's all in the development phase till it gets properly integrated into our everyday life. Then we come to this, the different issues that we are talking about in the world of AI in terms of from where the decolonial perspective begins about artificial intelligence and the extractive nature of AI. And we start off with interesting questions as to who is building AI, whose knowledge counts, and who benefits and who is excluded from this network of knowledge creation that's happening through AI. Another interesting reading where Crawford says that AI is neither artificial nor it is intelligent. It's not artificial because it is based on usage of so many natural resources, and we understand how it consumes a lot of water, requires physical infrastructure, and its impact on the environment, and its extractive nature of AI. And It's compared to atlas maps where there is a structure of domination which is inherent to that, and domination, collaboration. So that's the argument made by Crawford. And we see that the chief designers of contemporary atlas of AI are a small and homogeneous group of people based in a handful of cities, working in an industry that is currently the wealthiest in the world. So that's the picture of AI that we are looking at. And this brings us to the discussions of coloniality, which talks about classification, segregation, surveillance, and mapping, and from there, how these processes of colonization have been integrated into the technology world. Another aspect which kind of talks about it was Karen Howe's book on Empire of AI, which talks about Silicon Valley's scale at all costs approach and the resource extraction and labor exploitation. And obviously AI is not politically neutral. It inherits and reproduces all the racial hierarchies, and hence we are talking about decoloniality. We understand that people are constantly going through a matrix of domination. So it's not just one angle of domination, but there are multiple layers of dominations which is there. Interestingly, these are about the ideas of epistemologies also, that whose knowledge counts. The Global South epistemologies are not integrated into AI, and many a times the languages used in AI or the local languages will not have that the structural necessities by which it can get integrated into the AI circuit. And maybe that's what the previous speaker, Dr. Varghese, was also referring to. And we also talk about design problems in AI, where the design itself is not inclusive, and we talk about the race after technology, and where the design biases are there, where just like a comparison is there in terms of how we design benches to kind of exclude the homeless. So what gets valued within a social structure, who is valued and whose knowledge is valued, the designs are made for whom, to include whom and to exclude whom, becomes important. And concepts of data colonialism and capitalism, I'll not get into that, but I'll get to where we can start the contestation in terms of whether we actually need to integrate and how much do we need to integrate of indigenous knowledge systems into AI. And if we are to talk about decoloniality, as for example, if you are doing research or finding data on food, culture, and identity, and ecological knowledge, and sacred forest cultures, understanding the structures of matriarchy and matrilineal in Indian societies, customary law, and legal pluralism, I have brought in examples from the region that I belong to, which is Northeast India, to try and understand how we integrate this idea of decoloniality into our research perspectives. I'm sure people working in other domains, in other regions, would have their own ways of looking at it. Well, I'll not get into the details of it in terms of fair data principle and care data principle, where we need to shift about the metadata structure to where we talk about whose knowledge is counting, and whether in order to reverse the extractive nature of data collection, whether communities and people can get to benefit from the data that is being extracted from different culture and social systems in order to build those knowledges which are there in the AI platforms. So I bring this example from Northeast, where one of the research scholars that I'm working with is looking at the food cultures of the Idumishmi community in Arunachal Pradesh. And in doing so, we have been able to identify how the hearth, that means the cooking space, which is an integral part of the architecture of the Idumishmi household, how it becomes a center for not only their social life worlds, but also their cultural and spiritual life worlds. And when we look at the AI data scenario, it does talk about the Idumishmi community, but it does not talk about these spiritual and the actual life worlds. So it brings us to this question that should these sort of rituals or the spiritual aspects, should it actually become part of AI? Is that necessary, that everybody should have access to that knowledge, or should the community retain that knowledge for itself and should be able to control as to who does research and who does not do research and extract what data from us to be integrated into AI? Interestingly, the Idumishmi community has its own ethical clearance system. So, though we had to take an ethical clearance from our university, we also had to take an ethical clearance from the community-based organization where they are going to veto every publication and even the PhD data before it is published. So the community retains the right to decide whether the knowledge that it wants to put forward is actually going to get integrated into the generic data system about the community, and whether they agree to it, the people, the community, whether they agree to it or not. Similarly, even if a digitization of the data is happening, does it actually help in the survival of the different indigenous languages which are there? Like we were discussing about mechanisms where probably news that is there in a different language, and we develop a digital archive of an indigenous endangered language. Can that news be translated automatically by AI into that language so that news accessibility for a language minority community can be improved? But is that, will it create the cultural nuances? Will it help in the preservation of that particular language, that indigenous and a language whose survival is threatened and whose number of speakers are probably just a few hundred or just a few thousand people in the world right now? So these are questions that we need to think about while we are talking about digitization, decolonization of AI and the technologies that we decide, and similar examples about the missing. So research concerns with which I would probably want to conclude is that how at this moment in the 21st century is AI conceptualized and constructed? What are we expecting from AI? What is at stake in the turn of artificial intelligence, and what kinds of politics are contained in the way these systems map and interpret the world? What are the social and material consequences of including AI and related algorithmic systems into the decision-making system? So when AI starts making decisions about health, about education, and how when we integrate it into our everyday life systems, what sort of challenges we are going to face? And intelligence, obviously, is the ability to adapt to change, and we are evolving as a community, as humanity, to understand AI and to integrate it into our life, and we can only hope that we will do it in the best possible way. Thank you.
Doctor. Thank you, Dr. Jaya. And now let me come to Mr. Ghoshal, and let's hear what he has to say about colonization of the space. And these days, colonization, the worst form of colonization is colonizing the mind space. Gone are those days when geographical colonization was there, but now mind space. Dr. Ghoshal.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Respected Chairperson, Professor Mrinal Chatterjee, uh, Professor Jaya, I forgot the Chakravarti, Jaya Chakravarti, sorry, the esteemed professor on the dais, all distinguished scholars, all my dear friends. First, at the outset, I want to say first that I am not an AI specialist. Rather, in my personal life, in several spheres, I'm a little technology challenged person. But I'm a student of politics, sociology, and as a media person, the society is the best laboratory. And the influence of AI, I'm onlooker of the first development. And this subject, colonization and decolonization, this is very interesting subject because the history of the world says that there are two forces. One force is a force of unification that creates empire. Another force is the force of disintegration that created nation states also. So two forces, that's a dialectical relationship between these two forces were always there. Now, this AI colonization, the AI imperialism also you can say, making of an empire started from which country, started from whom, that also we are discussing. And we can say that from the West it started. I think I will not be wrong if I say, I stand before you, if there is anything incorrect, I am subject to correction. But my impression, my perception goes that this is, US is the vanguard of the AI operation. They want to, still today, they want to be the vanguard of the whole AI global, the empire. And this is, as Jaya mentioned, this is also epistemic colonization. It's not only economic colonization, it's not only through trade and commerce, it is epistemic. And this epistemological influence through information, this is information age, this is data age. So you can say that it's a digital capitalism we have reached. This is data capitalism. And now the question is how we can decolonize. As Professor Mrinal mentioned, this is Southeast Asia, not South Asia. So I will not discuss China, but I have to mention China as China has created an antithesis to US approach of colonial making the legacy. China is the antidote also. So this conflict, this dialectics also creating the new avenues each and every day. Lot of issues between US and China. Like chips. China was taking the chips from US. US stopped it. And immediately there was a reaction in US society, US industry reacting that they are actually losing. And now Trump administration again withdrawn the decision and they have started that business. And China is taking those chips. But China is investing in the defense and security more. And now there is a competitive colonialism, West and this region also. But I don't want to go into the details on China today. But Now the question is, technically, if we want to decolonizing this AI business, what will be the methodology? How we will combat? Because there is a consensus that there will be no independent internet grammar. We will follow the West internet model, but we want to make it in our appropriate technology. So we want to be local with the global necessity, with the global, whether you will call it colonization or not, that is a different thing, but you have to accept the Western model also. So now we will go for our own languages, but we will not change the internet basic structure of the AI, which is global. So global and local, colonization and decolonization, both the forces are working together. That's a very interesting and very complicated also. Now, today's AI system are built, as I told, built mostly first in the US, but then China and Europe. Now trained on Western data, and Western languages were dominating. And you know, this language imperialism, another complicated area. If you want to penetrate to the remote village to decentralize your AI system, you have to go to the local market, like in US, where their most popular McDonald's brand is the beef burger. And here they are selling the paneer burger. They are selling the Indian burger, Indian Chinese. We take Indian Chinese. So this AI global model now should be our the East Asia's model. And Vietnam, they are also very active. Indonesia is very active. They are doing their own Make in Vietnam, Make in Indonesia. There are several, they are very fast. And this South China Sea, that influence also we have to keep in mind. So the world is like the osmosis. There is you cannot watertight compartmentalization of this, because India is in a peculiar position. We are South Asia and this Southeast Asia. We are in the Myanmar is a country where they are in the border, and we are taking advantage, and we have some disadvantage also for both the regions. Now, language, I just made some points that what we should not do, the decolonization or combating this colonial methodology. So no separate internet. We are not going into we will follow the global model, but we will adapt that global model with our Indian or Southeast Asia's appropriate technology. What I am mentioning, appropriate technology, there is a very famous book. And that philosophy of appropriate technology is also relevant here to make our own decolonized system, which will be like autonomous. In India is our, with special reference to India, because we are in Indian territory and we are Indians. There are several languages in India also. Like she was talking about Assam, Northeast. How many languages are there in Northeast? So now if AI develops, now the Meta and the ChatGPT, they are doing very fast in Bengali also. If I asked, do you know Bengali? Yes, I can. Can you translate this? Yes, I can. So within a second, I am thinking, then you will get it. So the AI is thinking and you are getting the result. So now the problem is that the hurdles, that also we have to discuss. Because data scarcity is a problem, because in language, you need billions of words, otherwise you cannot compete. Like in Tamil, they are facing some problem that you need more words. It's a process. And the brain drain, also another issue in this AI business. So the most important thing I believe, that is the issue of human factor. In US, they have succeeded, but still they are facing each and every day demonstration on the streets, because joblessness, through AI, they are also facing. So the contextually, we have to understand the US problem. We should not compare with apple and orange. I am not comparing, but you have to. So we are understanding the problem of American also, and they are thinking that AI can give the solution. But what is the solution? Here, just like computer, when computer came, I still remember that there was a protest movement, especially in Kolkata also, in Hong Kong Bank. We stopped the computer, the trade unions. But we cannot stop AI. If we stopped, like when the digital entry came into the media, Times of India did first. And in our Bengal media, we are late. And our mindset, little feudal mindset, we thought that if the digital expansionism, it comes, then the readers of the hard copies will be less, we will face the trouble. But eventually, now everyone is in the digital expansionism. Just like that, the television, then digitalization, and now in AI, only it's my personal feeling. The problem is that we have to take a middle path, because we cannot stop AI. And if we say, recently in our NDTV, there is a big AI conference in there. Yeah, thank you. It is needed, like our journalistic copy. So the last point is, I was reading a book, Madam Yasmin Ibrahim. She is professor of, the digital, the AI economy at Queen Mary College in London University. She has said that the humans are no longer just users. As AI users, we co-produced value with algorithms. The problem is that it has become a post-humanism era. We used to say post-truth era. Now it's a post-humanism era, that we don't bother about our future of the human kingdom. We are more concerned with the production through AI. So I think we have to support this AI. We have to combat the colonization. It's not very easy, but we have to take a middle path. We have to follow the global methodology with our own local identity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ghoshal. The last three sentences were really, really very illuminative. And I'll quickly go to Mr. Bhargis for his comments on, you have flagged why colonization. Dr. Ghoshal has shown that decolonization, which Dr. Jaya has also flagged, decolonization probably is not always desirable also. I mean, that's what Dr. Jaya flags. This colonization probably. So what's your take on that? And how do we go so that we can harvest the benefit of AI without falling prey to the pitfalls that AI obviously brings in? Dr. Varghese.
Like Ghoshal sir said, most of these Southeast Asian countries are investing heavily to develop their own local AI system, right? So that they can train their model with the local data sets, just like Professor Joya spoke about, right? So the local curated data set, then locally governed infrastructure. This is one of the where we can develop our locally developed AI system, so that the decolonization process will happen there from as a starting point. But I want to ask another questions here, that what theory of culture is embedded in this new system, even if it's a locally developed AI model. When a Southeast Asian AI platform, for example, generate an image, because I'm from a visual communication area, okay, generate an image of a Javanese wedding, right? Or a Vietnamese fishing community, right? Or a Balinese temple ceremony, right? Whose visual grammar is it using, right? Whose standard of accuracy are built into this evaluation framework? Because the core risk is here, if the new generation of Southeast Asian AI system is built into compete on the same benchmark as the existing global platform, like Ghoshal sir said, right? It has to be compete with the global platform. We can take that methodology. But the problem is that, yeah, and the pressure to compete, right, largely requires adopting those benchmark, those methodology, right? The globally tested, this Western methodology, the benchmarks on. But here, then the system, that result may be locally owned. We have developed, we have our own data set and all, but not locally grounded. Because we are taking that benchmark, already developed the benchmark, right? So the technical development happens here, obviously. But the assumption about what good output look like were made elsewhere. And when we talk about the history of this technological transfer in this region, includes many examples, right? Infrastructure built into global standards that doesn't serve local needs, right? Platforms adopted wholesale that embedded assumption about user behavior and social organization that simply doesn't fit. AI is also not immune to this, right? In fact, because AI system absorb their assumption through data rather than explicit programming. Those assumptions are harder to identify and harder to challenge once they are in. So, the question I want to leave here is not whether Southeast Asia should build its own AI system. It should, right? And it is happening there. Whether in Singapore, all other Southeast Asian countries, they are developing their own framework and all. But the real question is whether the process of building those systems include a serious engagement with what cultural representation actually means in this context, not as a downstream consideration. Once you develop, then you look into it. No, right? Not as a content moderation problem, but as a foundational design questions.
Absolutely. I entirely agree with Dr. Varghese that we need to move to the core, the foundation. not the cosmetic tinkering, doing your own machine and all, but the foundation. With that, I think it's a great responsibility for the AI engineers who are creating the ecosphere. It's a great responsibility for us also who are using AI extensively. The more you use in a particular way, that impacts the entire ecosphere. So with that, let's hope that we should be able to build something without that colonial pressure on us. Thank you so very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much for a beautiful conversation. I will request all the panelists to stay back to receive the certificates. And I have the honor to call Professor Dr. B.P. Sanjay sir on stage and Dr. Minal Parikh ma'am on stage to distribute the certificates to our esteemed panelists.
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Can I have Dr. Jinu Verghese on screen, please?
Yes.
No, the culture.
Can you have Dr. Moushumi Bhattacharya and Dr. Ankuran Datta on stage, please? Dr. Sanjay Sengupta sir, Dr. Pritha Chakraborty ma'am, Dr. Jhumur Dattagupta ma'am, Santosh sir, Sudeshna ma'am, Shobhik. Can we have Apratim, can we have you on stage? Namashish is here.
Just give us 5 minutes as we get the stage ready for the cultural program. Requesting all of you to stay put. It's a 20-minute musical rendition by the students. It's called Dehipada Vallava Mudaram. And after the cultural program, we'll break for high tea. Okay, thank you.
He was Krishna.
राजा सुनो बनवारी, राजा सुनो बनवारी, बाके बिहारी शाम रंगीले ओ मोरे गिरधर। राजा सुनो बनवारी, राजा सुनो बनवारी। बंसी बजाओ गैया चराओ रास रचाओ मुरारी ओ मुरारी कैन वर जाओ राधा संग बसो थोड़ी सुरतिया पे
She came like moonlight upon still waters, grace in her steps, longing in her eyes. Many spoke the name of Krishna, but only Radha bore his presence like a prayer within her heart. Not merely the beloved of Krishna, but she is where devotion itself finds its voice.
सुंदरी राधे आवे बनी, सुंदरी राधे आवे बनी, ब्रजरमणि गण मुकुटमणि, सुंदरी राधे आवे बनी, सुंदरी राधे आवे बनी, कुंचित केशिनी निरुपम वेशिनी रस आवेशिनी भंगिनी, कुंचित केशिनी निरुपम वेशिनी रस आवेशिनी भंगिनी रे, अधर सुरंगिनी अंग तरंगिनी संगिनी नव नव रंगिनी रे, सुंदरी राधे आवे बनी, सुंदरी राधे आवे बनी।
And there, beneath the dark embrace of the woods, he waits. No word is spoken, for some meetings are too sacred for speech. Where yearning itself becomes union, Radha and Krishna, no longer two wandering souls, but one eternal breath.
कैसे कोई हट गया मन से लिपट अनजाना, वो नीले अंग सा रूप रंग लगी मन समाधि प्रेम भंग, अंग अंग फिर मन मदंग और तंग तंग और
मुरली की धुन सुर राधिके, मुरली की धुन सुर राधिके, मुरली की धुन सुर राधिके, धुन सांस सांस मेरे गुण के, धुन सांस सांस मेरे गुण के, कर गे प्रेम का गीता मोह का शब्द, मुरली की धुन सुर राधिके, मुरली की धुन सुर राधिके, मुरली की धुन सुर राधिके। सखियों का पिया प्यारा, सब सखियों का पिया प्यारा, सब में है और सब सुनारा, सब सखियों का पिया प्यारा, सब में है और सब सुनारा। वाकिया मुझे ये बात झांकी है दिल देखी जा, सब सखियों का पिया प्यारा, सब में है और सब सुनारा, सब सखियों का पिया प्यारा। पिया समाए जिया मोरे पिया समाए, पिया समाए, पिया समाए जिया मोरे पिया समाए। सात रंग है सातों पिया के, देख सखी को भी तू भी लगा के, सात रंग है सातों पिया के, देख सखी को भी तू भी लगा के। सातों से मिलके भाई मैं उजली, कोई हरा कोई गेरुआ बता दे।
Love's final surrender.
स्मरगरलखण्डनं मम शिरसि मण्डनं देहि पदपल्लवम् उदारम्।
So as I tell your name, please come forward. Sharanya Sen, Mrinmoy De, Srinjana Manna, Ahona Chatterjee, Shubhangi Roy, Shayani Chakraborty, and Sreyashi De. Can we have a big round of applause for them? Mrigan sir, Joyanto sir, Shoikat, Moshumi, if you all can come up on stage and have a group photo with them. Pritha, Isho. Pritha, come. Sudeshna, come. I can't see others in the... Santosh sir, come, please sir. Please come, sir. Shoikat, come. Requesting everyone, we can head to the second floor for the high tea. Aprotim, are you there? Hey, এটা বন্ধ করিস না। Aprotim, are you there? না না